Hey there.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, welcome. Welcome, everybody. All hack participants and those joining us for the very first time in an Indigenous event. My name is Simon. I'm from Singapore.
And I'm Donna from the Philippines.
Well, we're joined from people all over the world in preparation for our global hack next weekend.
Yeah, that's right, Simon. So now that you guys are all here, I'll be taking the opportunity to invite you to check out hack.indigitus.org. So tell us where you're coming from, where you're listening in the
Please
comments
do.
below. Yeah, we will be very glad to read those comments coming in. All right. Yes. So
Awesome. We'd love to.
Simon. Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, yes, we would love to find out where you guys are coming from, joining us. We have LinkedIn users with folks all from Panama. Awesome. Love it.
Wow. So we are streaming live in LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. So this is a party, you guys. So Simon, we're getting captioned live actually.
Wow.
So all thanks to Spiffio. It's an AI that is also a missional innovation tool because it's mainly for the use of expanding the understanding of the gospel in many languages. So our captions are actually AI generated. How cool is that?
Woo, woohoo.
So if you guys are interested to know more about it, you can open spf.io.
Love it. Love it. Well, we realize some of you might be new to Indigitus. So, who are we really? Come, Jonah, tell us.
Yes, I would be very glad to do so. So, we are a global network of people who are passionate about Jesus, about bringing the gospel where it needs to go, and are so excited to see how digital opens up new and creative ways to do that.
Just imagine if thousands of us all around the world who love Jesus and want to make him known using whatever we have to share the gospel.
Yeah, so maybe you have Instagram or TikTok or WhatsApp message or a Facebook ad. So maybe we can share an app or a chatbot done or built for Hack 2021. So yeah, actually whatever works, wherever we are,
Mhm.
in our language, in our context, and in our culture.
And that's what Indigenous is all about, helping you reach your world, indigenous and digital.
That's right. And Hack is one of the ways we do that. We develop solutions that address real challenges. So Hack is only possible because of you and your hard work. And that's why you're here, right? You're here to
Amen.
learn to design better solutions before you start coding.
Well, before we get started tonight, I wanted to share something exciting with you. For this year's hack, we have three global challenges presented by some awesome partners: American Bible Society, World Vision, and Coalition of the Willing. These challenges will be touching on ministry areas such as missions, discipleship, and outreach. From a technology standpoint, there's something for everybody: web development, data science, machine learning, digital marketing, and social media, and more. So check out our website for detailed information and great videos from our three challenge partners.
That's so cool. So now for our main event, we're so excited to have Liam Savage. He is the Director of Innovation at OneHope on the leadership team with Indigitus and has won first place at several hackathons and teaches a course on design thinking best practices but applied to the ministry context with graduates from ministries and churches around the world. He lives in Florida with his wife, Patty. So let's welcome Liam Savage.
Hey, friends. It's so good to
Hey,
be with you this
Liam,
morning.
good to see you.
Hey, how are you guys doing today?
We're good. And
Thank you so
yourself?
much for having me. I'm doing well. I'm so happy to be here. I love Hack. I love Indigitus. And so, yeah, thank you for inviting me.
Hack loves you too.
All right. Well, let's talk about human-centered design. I think it's really powerful, and it's a great tool to help you guys as you start your hack journey to really prepare ahead of time and know how to approach the challenges that Simon just went over. So I'm going to go ahead and start. Human-centered design is something that was created by IDEO, which is a design company studio that was built out of Stanford's School of Design. And they have 3 phases: inspiration, ideation, and implementation. And a hack is all about coming up with ideas and making a prototype. So it really focuses on that ideation and implementation part. And in my experience with hackathons, you really need to spend more time focusing on the inspiration part, because that's where you get an understanding of the people you're trying to serve and the way that they have problems and how to solve them. And I feel like sometimes, because a hackathon is very short amount of time, you've got 48 hours to build something that adds value, that proves the concept. And so what I've seen is that people tend to come with ideas and then they just start coding them and they try to get as much done as quickly as possible. And so I want to encourage you to step back from the ideation and implementation phase and think a little bit more about the inspiration phase. So let me dig in, and I think we have superpowers as part of the Christian church when it comes to inspiration. Inspiration is all about having the humility to learn, and we have that made so much more possible by our love for the lost. So when you think about humility to learn, Jesus served people. He was always serving, like washing the disciples' feet. That was always an act of humility, to sit with the least and the lost. And I think that we as believers, as Christians, we share that same love for the lost. So this image of a person clutching their chest, like that to me shows the pain, the desire, the urgent need to share the gospel with those who don't yet have that hope. And so I want you to keep that at the center of your work, that love and that desperate hunger to reach those who don't know Jesus, who don't know that there's a God that loves them, and use that love for the lost to fuel your innovation, to fuel your humility, because humility means I don't know everything. I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to be inspired. I'm willing to challenge my assumptions. So as you start thinking about these challenges, I want you to think about humility, being willing to take a step back, and love, that you are desperately seeking how to serve and how to reach the people who don't yet know Jesus. Okay, so one of the principles of innovation is that diversity leads to innovation. If you have a lot of different people, men and women, different cultures, different experience levels, pastors and technologists and designers, you're going to have a lot of different perspectives. And those perspectives will help you fill in blind spots. They'll help you fill in for each other's weaknesses. You'll have a big pool of raw material to pull from. And so I would encourage you to think about assembling a really diverse group of people. This is a global hackathon. And I think one of the strengths of that is that there's a big online presence. That means you can reach out and say, hey, we're designing something in the US for Africa. Let's see if we can get a few of our brothers and sisters from one of the hacks in Africa to speak into our project. Use that because it truly will help fuel your innovation. Now, I want to ask you guys to participate with me for a second. As we start, as I'm getting into the first principle for the way to do better design thinking for your project, Google ran a study to try to understand what makes their most productive teams so effective and what makes their least productive teams less productive. What is it that results in this difference between performance and innovation and creativity in their teams? So there's a few options. I want you to put in the chat which one you think is the most defining feature. What would make a team very successful versus a team not successful? So they looked at a large number of factors, skill and project fit. Do we have the right people on the team for that problem they're trying to solve? A cultural diversity mix, age diversity, funding. Do they have the right resources that they need? Is it about the leadership and the way that they do it, the way that they lead? Is it about the education levels in the group? Do they have like all PhDs? Is it the experience? Like we have over 100 years of experience in machine learning on our team, or project management style. That they're totally using Asana, or they're using Scrum methodology. Okay, I see a few suggestions coming in the chat. So a lot of you are saying leadership. Love it. All right. Trust. David. Okay, I see. So David Sengupta said trust, which isn't on here, but it's like he's reading my mind. Okay, so thank you guys for sharing. So this is what Google found. They found that none of these things had a very significant impact on the effectiveness of a team. They found something that surprised them, and it was this concept of psychological safety. And I think that psychological safety, put into simpler terms, can be understood as trust, mutual trust. That for the people on the team, they knew that they were accepted by their peers, and they knew that their peers relied on them and trusted them and cared about what their contributions were. And so that resulted in innovation because of this cycle, that because they had trust, they were comfortable admitting their mistakes, which allowed the team as a whole to learn from those failures. And then they were able to openly share ideas with one another, which led to better decision making. And it was just this cycle that resulted in more creativity and more innovation. And so what I want to say is diversity gives you a lot of raw materials, a lot of new perspectives, a lot of fresh ways of looking at problems, and you need that diversity. But that diversity will be hindered and slowed down and crippled if you don't have trust. And so my first principle for your hack team is that I want you to join a diverse team, and I want you to spend some time at the beginning building relationship and trust first before you dive into your projects. Because it's really easy to just jump in and start solving problems without really knowing who you're solving problems with. And then if you run into an issue, you don't maybe have that sense of trust or comfort to be able to learn together and challenge each other's assumptions. I think that the kingdom and ministry work that we're doing is too important to let it be, to let our impact be weakened by a sense of false harmony. And what I mean by that is that it's really easy to be like, yeah, I don't think that's ever going to work, but I don't really feel comfortable disagreeing. And I don't want to disagree because, we're all here together and he's probably more senior than me. So I'm not going to say anything about that idea, even though I have a better solution or a better idea. So I don't want that. I want you to be able to say, hey, based on my experience, I think that there's a better way to do it. Let's talk about it. You're not disagreeing with the person. You're disagreeing with the idea for the sake of the gospel, for the sake of the impact of the project. So I want you to have that mutual trust. And it takes a little bit of time, but I think that time will be well spent as it leads to the betterment of your project. And it'll show in your work as you disagree and refine your ideas and refine your project. All right, so that's the first idea. The second one, I want to start with a metaphor. So there's a saying that if I were going to cut down a tree, if I were given 5 hours to chop down a tree, I would spend the first 4 hours sharpening my axe. That this idea of focus, if you were trying to chop down a tree with a really dull axe, you're going to spend a lot of time wasting effort, working much harder than you need to work. Whereas if you have a really refined edge, and you're going to make a lot more progress a lot faster. Maybe a simpler way to say this is fast is slow and slow is fast. So fast is slow, meaning if you just start hammering away with a dull axe, it's going to take a long time. So you got started fast, but the end work ended up being really slow because you maybe had to go back and redo things. But if you spend some time up front going slower and defining the problem, then you're able to go much faster afterwards because you know exactly what you're solving and for who. So this is the second point, and I'm going to get more into detail with it and explain a tool to help you do this. Define your audience. The more specific, the easier it is to design. So what do I mean by this? All right, we're serving the church, we're serving the kingdom. And so I just want to use an example of pastors. So pastors, the idea of segmentation, we want to define our audience, and starting with pastors is maybe, you might say, pastors, that's a really good audience. That's, I know exactly who I want to serve when I say pastors. So I want to invite you to write in the chat again. If you had a room full of 1,000 pastors, all different kinds of pastors from all walks of life, all parts of the world, how would you start dividing the room into smaller groups, like more specific groups? If you were to say, okay, half of you over here and half of you over there, let's put them all into separate groups. How would you start effectively making different groups? And those groups are relevant. Like you would want to talk maybe a little bit differently to one group than a different group. So go ahead and put in the chat a few ideas that come to mind. How would you divide a room with 1,000 pastors in it? I'll give you a minute to think. All right, I'm going to start with a couple of suggestions while you guys are working. So one idea, I see. Okay, Priscilla says by country. Nice. Age, good. Type of ministry. They're a pastor of a highly by culture. Okay, you guys are getting the picture. Denomination, great. Skills, language. All right. So there's a lot of different variables. You guys are doing great. What kind of setting? Urban, small country, traditional, contemporary, economics. You guys are doing so great. This is really cool. Okay, so you guys came up with a lot of them that I already had. So, you can think about their role. What's their role in the church? How big is their church? Is it a small church, a medium, a large? It's going to be really different if you're talking to the children's pastor, the things that they care about versus a lead pastor. They just have different priorities, different things that they're working on, as well as a small church. If you only have a team of 3 people for your whole church and there's only 50 people who come on a Sunday, that's going to be totally different from a church with thousands and thousands of people. Alphabetically, nice one. I like that. So as you think about other factors, where are they in the world? Is it a small city? Are they internationally located? Is it majority world or first world? How old is the pastor? We saw age, English speaking or non-English speaking. Do they have seminary training? You guys listed all of these. So there's a ton of them. You can even get into things like, for instance, are they open to collaboration or do they never collaborate? Or how did they do in COVID? Like, did they try something new? Did they do church online? Or are they just waiting for things to go back to normal? So these are all different ways that you can segment and start dividing up a group, and it makes it much easier to design. So imagine this. I chose just 2 random variables from the ones that you listed. A senior pastor versus a children's pastor, and then age, 50 plus or young, 25 to 35. So if you were designing an app for one group versus the other, or a website or a resource, the way that you would go about it for one audience versus the other is dramatically different. Even the way that you would talk to them is different. You might be very informal and friendly and social with the one on the right, and you might be more honoring and respectful and serious with the one on the left. The one on the left probably doesn't have a lot of time, like running a big church or being just in a senior position. He's probably got decision-making power that the younger one maybe doesn't have. So there's just a multitude of differences between these two. And so I just want to encourage you, as you're thinking about who you're trying to serve with your project, the more specific you are in defining your audience, the easier it is to design and make decisions around how best to serve that audience. So that's really a really helpful tip, something that I had to learn the hard way. All right. The next tip that I have, the third tip, is to define the problem and narrow the scope of your solution. So this goes with the axe strike metaphor that I started with. The fast is slow and the slow is fast. There's a lot of problems. There's a lot of ways that you could tackle a problem. And the way that you build a solution could be very complex. And so I want to encourage you to think about the journey of the audience that you just defined. So say you just defined as focusing on that young pastor for children's ministry. I want you to think about their journey. Now, there's two types of journey map that I want to discuss. The first is audience journey map. The audience journey is the journey that they take with you regardless of your solution's existence. This is about their life. This is about their problems. And when you think about their situation, understand their context, and then think about their needs, their goals. What are they trying to accomplish? What is the action that they could take to meet that need? There's something that they could do to help make progress towards that goal. But if it's still a need or a goal, there must be some barrier that's preventing them from taking action. There's got to be something that's holding them back. And so in that sense, your solution helps overcome that barrier. Then with that barrier gone, they can take the action that they need to meet that goal. Then they can meet that goal. So I guess what I would say is, in summary, with a hack event project, the judges are looking for you to solve real problems. They don't want you to just make a Christian version of something that already exists. They want you to understand the people that you're serving and why your solution matters. How does it fit into their life? And so as you think about the project that you're working on, dig deep into understanding that audience's needs, because there's so many things that we could just make. But if it's not serving a real problem, then no one's going to use it. You're not going to suddenly find people who need the thing that you made if it's separated from their reality and the things that they actually care about. So let me give you an example, because this is a little bit abstract to just explain it. So I'm going to use the example of a ride-sharing app. So something like Uber. So if you start on the left, the life context. It was designed around a business traveler on a work trip. They're in a new city, they arrive late at night, and they need to get from the airport to their hotel. What's the unmet need that they have? They need transportation around an unfamiliar city. Okay, so the action that they want to take is they need to get into some sort of vehicle so they can ultimately be delivered to their destination in exchange for money. That's what they want. But there's a barrier. What are the barriers? I don't know, taxis are expensive. Sometimes they don't accept credit cards. They're not always easily available. Or if he's going to try public transportation, it's hard to figure out, especially if you arrive late at night and you're jet lagged, or the public transportation information is in another language, or you're both jet lagged and it's in another language. So the solution that Uber designed, or that any ride-sharing app designed, is an app that works all over the world, where all you need to know is the address, and a private car will come and take you somewhere where you needed to go with a safe system for payment and trip tracking. So that helps position your solution in a way that actually meets the unmet need. Now, you may be thinking this is basic, but having this context will help you explain and make decisions around why your solution is the way it is. So for instance, maybe you're in a discussion with your group and you're discussing the life context. This is a really helpful opportunity for you to disagree, for you to exercise that sense of safety, that trust, as you discuss what is the true unmet need. I think it's this, I think it's that. What is the solution? Well, there's multiple ways that we could go about this. The solution being an app, that's just one of many, many possible solutions. You could solve it also with, as we described, the barrier. If another language If public transportation being in another language was the hardest part, then something like Google Lens that does automatic translation would also be a viable solution to translate through your camera and overlay text in your language. That would help you use public transportation. So really, this helps you define what are the most important issues to solve in this person's journey and context, and help you express and explain to a judge or to the rest of the team why your solution matters. All right, so that's the audience journey map. The next one is user journey map. Now, this is the one that you might be more familiar with. This is the journey that someone takes with you as a user of your solution. So I put 5 phases here. There's some sort of encounter. They discover the need. They discover that you exist. And then they're curious. They explore a little bit of what you have to offer. Then they start to engage. They maybe download or give you their email, or there's some sort of action that they take. And then finally, believe. They believe in the project. They want to do more. They get involved. The last one is champion. Like, they start telling others about you. They care about it and promote it. So this user journey map is a helpful concept because as you think about the example that we just used, there's a whole process in the solution space. So an app that works all over the world, they have to go through this process to have encountered that app, explore the need and how the app works, download it and start using it. This is in that user experience space. How do we create a solution that serves them? Now, what I want to encourage you is, if you do all this design work and lay out how do you build your solution, how do you meet that need, you're going to have all of these phases. And so in a hackathon, when you only have 48 hours, you want to narrow your scope to one piece of this journey map. What is the most critical problem to solve? So let me show you an example. We don't have to go through this in detail. It's not even legible anyways, because it's so small. But the idea is, I drew a user journey map of people encountering a particular brand, exploring it, going through what's the pathway, what are the things that they're connecting with. And we found that this most critical moment is in the transition from engage to believe. When a children's ministry or youth ministry volunteer encounters the training that we are talking about. And so as you think about this journey that you are building for your solution, you're never going to be able to build the whole experience in 48 hours. And you shouldn't try. It'll really limit what you can do and how effective your prototype is. But if you can design a specific moment in that journey map and express to the judges why that moment matters, and show them how effective your solution is at fixing that most critical moment, it goes a really long way to showing that you understand the problem as a whole. So those are my tips. I would just say, be encouraged. Hackathons are so much fun. Spend a lot more time on the design or on the discovery part, that inspiration phase. Be willing to challenge those assumptions. Be willing to learn. And if you don't know about your audience, if you don't know a particular solution in mind, a way to approach a particular problem, or you define that audience and you don't know enough about them, spend some time and see if you can leverage the network of the global hackathon to say, okay, we want to make something that serves church planters in Francophone Africa. Does anyone know any church planters in Francophone Africa? And see if you can get in touch with some, because I bet you can. And spending the time to talk to the right people and learn from their story what the things that are most important to them are, you're going to set your team up for success. You're going to solve real problems. You're going to make something that really adds value to the kingdom. And it's really powerful. So I'm so blessed and encouraged that you guys are here, that you're participating in the hack. You guys are awesome. I'm going to be praying for you. And yeah, I hope that it goes well. I hope that you have fun. And the global church needs you guys. The global church needs people who care and are willing to use their skills to serve and to make things that are new and to solve real problems. So I'm open to taking questions. I would love to answer anything that was unclear that I could make clearer as you guys think about hack and how to answer some of these.
Wow, I
Wow.
really learned a lot.
Wow, that's cool. Really cool, Liam. Well, you guys, you can ask your questions on YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn. I know we have friends from all three platforms. We're so glad that you have joined us. It was really cool to see the interaction just now, right, Liam?
Yeah,
Like we
I
are
loved
giving
it.
the answers and in real time. This is really awesome. And we know that there are folks joining, they are watching the captions or the subtitle the closed captions in Spanish, Portuguese, Amharic, and French. That's so awesome. Well, you guys have questions. Why don't you type in the chat so that we can kind of make Liam squeeze everything out of him, right, Jonah?
Yeah, or I usually use the phrase pick his brain.
His brain, no,
All
we
right.
want his brain to stay just that
Oh.
way. But we can ask something and he can offer us a little bit of that wisdom. Yeah.
All right.
I
So
see a
maybe we can
question from
start.
McKeel.
Ah,
Yeah.
McKeel, how can
Um,
we help build trust when in a new group? Yeah.
yeah, that's such a good question. Uh, you know, relationships form really old fashioned. It's about spending time with each other. So tell each other about your lives, the things that you care about. I find that at the start of the hack, if you can just grab a coffee with your team
Mm,
and talk about your life, what are the things that make you excited, that get you up in the morning, that keep you up at night? Those passions and sharing about your family, just getting to know someone, if even if you were just think about it like you want to make a new friend, build trust that way. Different cultures build trust differently. I know that uh, trust is in some cultures, trust is relational. Like you have to spend time with someone before you really are willing to work together with them. And I know in American culture and in some other cultures, it's very task based. Like I'll trust you when you do good work. I don't want to spend time getting to know you. I just want to like let's make something. So if you're in the task based culture, um, I'd encourage you to spend time getting to know them first. Love and fellowship with one another, know each other's hearts, and just do that by asking each other questions,
Mm-hmm.
getting to know each other, and celebrate the things that are important to you. Why are you at the hackathon? What are
Mm-hmm.
you hoping to accomplish? And
Mm,
if you just spend 20 minutes talking and getting to know each other, um, you'll go a lot further in the project having that just as a
mm.
foundation. You know who you're with.
It's awesome.
I
Yeah,
love that.
love it. Well, keep your questions coming. I'll just make a quick comment here as well. One of the best things about this hashtag is that, we are focused on the mission and the goal. And, based on Mikhail's question, one of the things that is best you do is to pray together. And I love it that this not a hackathon that we're just competing and just trying to be cutthroat and step over the other
Yeah.
person, but we want to get to the mission. And praying together just knits our hearts together. Yeah, it's
Mm.
awesome.
Mm.
Mm, yeah. We've got a second question here from Priscilla. What is the biggest assumption you have had to overcome?
That is such a good question. I think the biggest assumption I've had to overcome is that I'm an expert in anything.
Mm,
I honestly, as I've learned more about innovation, uh, the more I've learned that I don't know a whole lot about anything. The world is changing so fast. I mean, if you think about even putting COVID aside and how much that has changed everything, the rate of technology change, the rate that business has changed, the way that Facebook has shaped communities and culture and relationships, like technology and our world as a whole is just constantly evolving. And so what you knew 5 years ago might not be relevant at all. What you knew 10 years
mm,
or 10 days ago might be irrelevant as things keep changing. So I would just encourage you, uh, even in areas where you consider yourself expert, uh, take those assumptions and those things and hold them with open hands and say, the world has continued to change. I might need to relearn some of these things. I might need to reevaluate some of the areas where I feel really confident, because it's very easy to have sort of a pride or an ego. But if you're going to be expert in anything, I would encourage you to be an expert in learning, that you're constantly able to learn and reevaluate and grow and change. I think that I made that mistake thinking like, I'm a great designer, I know how to do things. And I really encourage you, the world is too diverse, the problems are too complex and interconnected. There's not really a simple answer to most of the things that we're thinking about. And so the more open and receptive you can be to the challenges, the better set up you're going to be, not to be caught off guard, not to be blindsided by things that you assumed were the way the world worked, and it doesn't work that way anymore. So yeah, be an expert in learning.
It's good.
Yeah, it's great. I have a lot of tweetables from Liam.
Tweetables. Looks like Mikhail has another question. How can we deal with conflict, especially with diverse teams?
That's a great
A
question.
follow-up question, yeah.
Yeah. So conflict. So I don't know if you guys know anything about the Enneagram, but I'm a 9. I'm a peacemaker. And I don't like conflict at all. I don't like disagreeing. I don't like arguing with anyone. But I would say conflict with diverse teams is a challenge. You've got diverse opinions. You've got people who think they're experts. Maybe they didn't watch this webinar and they think that they know all the answers. I would encourage you to always frame conflict in terms of the project rather than the person. It's not personal. It's about the project, and it's about the gospel impact we want to have. And so as much as you can, rather than saying, I disagree, or I think that's the worst idea I've ever heard, talk about it and say, there's a few questions that I would ask. I understand the benefits of your idea, but what are the drawbacks? Like, what are the negative sides? If you're wrong, what are the impacts going to be? Or another question is, what led you to that assumption? What are you basing that decision on? Asking questions to dig deeper and get them to give more context are a very helpful way of just opening the conversation. So don't disagree with the person, disagree with the idea. And usually the other thing I would say is disagreements are usually not about the most apparent thing. There's usually something behind the position that's at conflict. So for instance, if you're saying, I think we need to build it this way, and the other person is saying it needs to be that way, when we were defining our audiences, maybe the reason someone thinks it needs to be A and the other person thinks it needs to be B is because there's a disagreement about who it's actually for, or what the problem you're actually solving is. And so the better you can get at the underlying thing, the disagreement that's behind the disagreement, the better it is, because it's really easy to address whatever the face problem is, whatever objection someone raises. But really trying to say, tell me more, like, why do you think that? Because you'll uncover that there's something else behind it, that those underlying philosophies are at conflict with one another. And that if those were aligned, if that underlying issue was aligned, you'd be able to move forward in harmony.
Wise words. That's again a reminder that what we're doing is actually a spiritual work, right? So there is an enemy, and the enemy is not the person you're seeing in front of you.
Yeah.
It's invisible, but it's so real. So that's why we often got to keep guarding ourselves. Looks like we have another question. Jonah, you want to read it for, I think Liam can see it too.
Yeah. So how do we strike a balance between getting the project done and, working on something essential? So that idea of the acts, defining the problem first versus just, we only have 48 hours. We have to go. I would say the balance, it's going to be different for every team. It's going to be different for every project. But I would encourage you to spend Honestly, if I were a judge judging a presentation and I had two projects to evaluate, and one project had spent all 48 hours building stuff and they had a lot of work done, but it didn't solve a real problem, and it was maybe focused on the wrong things, and it didn't seem to have the substance that was really needed. Or another project that was very complete as far as understanding a real need and defining even just what a solution would look like and what it would be, I would value the one that's solving a real problem more,
Mhm.
because honestly, there's not a lot that you can do in 48 hours. You're very limited. I know you guys are brilliant and talented and will be able to get a lot done, but I would just say a judge knows how much time you had. And so the focus being on something that is real, defining a solution without even building it, that has tremendous value in itself. So don't feel like that means the project didn't make progress. Um,
Mm.
Understanding the real needs is a critical part of the project. I was at a hackathon where the first place prize was an essay that someone wrote, and it was like 30 pages long, defining a way to engage children and the next generation with scripture. And it was based on research that they conducted at the hack event. And so there was zero interface done. There's zero work, but they did a lot of thinking work and interviews and
Mm.
conversations. And that won first prize because they're like, well, like they get it. They got a real solution defined,
Mm.
and someone else can work on it later. So I would be my encouragement. It is a balance. You want to show the effort, but I don't think time ever spent on that inspiration phase, that defining the problem, will ever be wasted.
Mm.
Mm. Yeah, I love that, Liam. So we also have another question from Brandon.
Yeah. Hey,
What's a good
Brandon.
way? Yeah. What's a good way to identify potential problems and solutions when working with a new team?
Identify potential problems and solutions. So let's see. I would say start with the hack challenges. Those are the global issues that organizations are saying these are areas where we need help. And human-centered design in that inspiration phase, they talk about what are the getting in touch with that audience and understanding their context and their situation. So the more you can have people in the room or people in your team who understand that need well, or understand the audience who's being served, um, ideas and inspiration come from real experience. So having sort of a beginner's mindset and an attitude to learn and say, okay, if we want to tackle this global challenge about scripture engagement for this unreached people group, then you need to learn everything you can about that unreached people group and find what are the challenges that they face. Why is it hard to reach them with the scripture? And it's called inspiration for a reason. You're hoping that there will be something that rises
Mm.
from that mix of problems and real person experiences and interviews, and like you um, so I would just encourage you as well, before the hackathon event, uh, do some research, think about things,
Mhm.
come to the event more prepared, with more raw materials for your team to work with,
Mhm.
and ideas and research and thoughts. Um, you don't have to do all of the work in the 48 hours. You can do a lot of thinking and prep work ahead of time that'll help you be more prepared.
It's good. Also, just a quick note that, if you are working on a challenge that's brought forward by a challenge owner,
Mm,
you would also be able to ask more questions and
Mm.
just clarify. And, whether it's American Bible Society or Coalition of the Willing or World Vision or any other local challenges you're tackling, you can always, kind of quiz them a little bit more, interview them, and they are on the field and they are the ones that have that missional problem statement, right? So they'll be able to give you a little bit more context and just keep
mm,
querying. And so then you're understanding a little bit better how to go about solving it. Yeah,
mm.
it's great.
That's great. Thanks, Simon. It's really
Mm.
helpful.
We
Yeah.
may have time for one last question if anybody else wants to submit their question or comment or anything.
Mm. And I also would like to note also that I think Paul was a design thinker or a human-centered thinker. Yeah, later I will share, but let's hear Liam's answer on Anne's question first.
Yeah. So, advice on choosing the best team members. I mentioned diversity. Can I say more? I certainly can, Anne. So, I would say, uh, you know, the more perspectives you have in the room or around the table, the better you'll be able to fill in each other's blind spots. So, if you could have a pastor and a technologist, an amazing front end coder, a designer, and if you're designing something for kids, if you could get a kid at the table to help you
Mm,
challenge some of those assumptions, like get
I like
people
that.
whose voices are relevant and different. If you've got a team and it's like all 20 somethings from the same city, from the same socioeconomic level or something, it's like you're all going to think the same way about the problem, and you're going to end up in sort of a closed loop of yeah, that's the right solution, I agree with you,
Mhm.
I see things the same way. So you want to try to find people who won't see things the same way, because that's exactly what you need. You want to look at the problem from different angles. So I'd
Mhm.
say just think about demographics. You want different
Yeah.
ages, you want different
Mm,
occupations, you want different experience levels and exposure to technology. And the more that you can get, the better. And I would also encourage you to find someone who can speak specifically to the problem that you're trying to solve.
Mhm.
If it's about the audience, get someone from that audience in whose voice can help represent that perspective.
Love it.
mm,
Yeah, I know many of you in your hackathons also have mentors. And I know many are doing virtual hacks, but please make use of your mentors because your mentors can ask you questions. What
mm,
questions should you be asking, or what questions are you not asking? Okay, that's critical. Your mentors have years of experience and perspective, and sometimes they can get you unstuck or just
Mhm.
over the hump. So please use your mentors. Okay.
mm.
It's great.
Yeah, we have time for I think this is the very last question.
Sure.
Okay, we'll do
I
one
think
last
this is a
one.
good one.
And
Any anecdotes on great teamwork and results from a previous project, Liam?
Yeah, for sure. Let's see. Um, I would say so. I ran a design sprint around a project for OneHope. It ultimately turned into being what's called the Kids Bible Experience. It's in the U version app, and we ran several different sprints around the concept. And we had a lot of different people in the room. We had men, women, young, old, and we were doing a design sprint, and most of them had never been in a design sprint before. So it was 5 days in a room together, going through activities really intensely. And I would say um, the better you can be a facilitator and a host, like to make sure everyone has the same assumptions. So, for instance, one of the things I love to do is to tell everyone to take their phone, and I put it in a box. And I say, guys,
Mm.
like, we're here to work. Let's put our phones away and focus on the task. And like
it's a phone
setting,
jail.
yeah, phone
Phone
jail.
jail.
So setting expectations about how you want to work together as a team is just really valuable, because it was hard to hold people accountable to like rules set up for the space unless you express them. And so
Mm,
if you're a Hack City lead and you want to set some rules, that's okay, because people are coming into that space to collaborate. And so
mm,
saying, we're going to open every project in prayer. We want to at least spend the first hour just getting to know our teams. Things like that will give you a lot of opportunity to direct the space. So I would just say, um, we the things that made our project successful were the time for fellowship, the clear sort of process. Like we're going to spend 90 minutes on this. The other one that was helpful, sorry, uh, this is about sprints in general when making a decision. Um, if you're trying to make a decision and there's a lot of differing perspectives, you can't argue about it all day. And so I know in a sprint, it's like you only have a few minutes to solve a problem. So it's similar to a hack. But if you can have a way decided up front, like how are we going to resolve irresolvable disputes, and like we want to get to the prototype sooner and learn, then I would encourage you to say, let's have the youngest person in the room or the youngest person on the group make the call, or have the person who's closest to the audience make the call. So it's if you're serving someone in Malaysia and you've got a Malaysian on your team, it's like, let's make the tiebreaker for decisions this person, and you decide that up front. Then when you have conflicts, you're like, okay, we tried to get to the bottom of it and find harmony, but we can't. Will you make the call? And then they'll make the call, and you're like, great, okay, let's move forward with that. So that's another good way to get collaboration going.
Love it. Yeah, that's awesome.
Wow. Wow. So, well, thank you so much, everyone, for all those great questions. You got really good instincts on like what to ask, and even I myself really learned a lot from this time. So, thank you so much, Liam.
Of course. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you, Liam. Thanks
Bye.
again. Yeah. Jonah, you have some concluding remarks and some announcements?
Yeah, what I wanted to share to our audiences, to our audience tonight is that I wanted to share to you this global map right here. Yeah.
What
All
is
right. So,
all this about?
yeah. So here is where we are hacking in the next and the following week. So we
Wow.
got 487 participants coming from different countries. So that's 61 cities from 36 countries. So if you haven't been able to register, go register now. If you got a friend who you wanted to invite, just go send a private message. Woohoo.
That's great. And I know that this number is not even counting some of the local registration, right?
Yeah.
Well, don't forget for our participants, we have a global connect moment during the hack weekend. Now, this is a
Yes.
chance where you get to gather and see to get all the cities that are hacking and just a glimpse of what else others are working on. And for everyone else, our guests and friends, and yes, of course, the participants as well, please mark November 5th, 9:30 a.m. or p.m. Eastern Time on your calendars. We'll be celebrating what God has done through the Hack in 60 over cities at a special program we call Hack Global Celebration. We have
Woohoo.
some wonderful global judges from around the world joining us, and then we'll announce the top projects during this special program. You see all
Exciting.
the links on the slide, and we'll make sure your city leads also share with you the link to call in. So this is going to be exciting time. You don't want to miss it. Yeah. So I think we're done, right, Jonah? Looks like we have
Yeah.
good comments from different ones. Or we've ended slightly early, which is awesome, right? And you can watch this again or share this link with
Yes,
your friends, those that may not
definitely.
be able to join us today,
Hmm. Yeah.
and keep learning. And we want to wish you a wonderful hack next weekend or the following, right? So
That's
God
right.
bless you, Jonah. Did I miss something?
You're perfectly fine, Simon. Perfectly good. You're
I
great.
thought you jumped in as like, okay, well, God bless you all. Thank you so much. Let me just say a quick prayer and then we'll send you off. All right. Dear Jesus, thank you so much for everybody that joined us on this call and those who might watch this video later, and all the hack participants. We're so grateful for what you're going to do this coming 2 weekends, and what this means, Lord, for the body of Christ, and also for the individual stories that you are going to write upon each of our hearts. So thank you. Please empower our city leads and everyone else that's involved in running hashtag. Bless them. Give them the joy of the Lord. Let that be their strength. Thank you so much. In Jesus' name.
Amen.
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 All
Thank you so much,
right.
everybody. See you on Hack.
See you in heck.
Bye.